Well, thank you as always for spending your valuable time with us and choosing to listen in today. You're going to be glad you did. We've got some really interesting stuff on the table for you. We're going to be chatting with Terry Fossum about negotiating past pain to success. And goodness knows we can all use that. So, welcome, Terry. It's great to have you here.
Cindy, thanks so much for having me. And I want to say right up front, I really appreciate everything you were doing with this podcast. I've listened to them.
Thank
You're really
you.
making a difference in the world and in your audience's lives. I really appreciate that.
Well, thank you. Aren't you gracious? My goodness. And for those of you who may not know Terry, he's a #1 bestselling author on Wall Street Journal and USA Today for his book, The Oxcart Technique, which we're going to be digging into a bit. He's Best Supporting Actor and Fan Favorite in the 2021 Christian Film Festival. He was the winner of Kicking and Screaming Survival Competition on Fox Network, which is interesting. I'm going to have to Google that. I have not had a chance to see it yet, but I can't wait to. An international keynote speaker as well. So let's dig in, Terry. What inspired you to write this best-selling book, The Oxcart Technique?
What inspired me was my own failure to success through my own failing. Well, in fact, let me just go ahead and start giving you a background. I
Yeah.
was raised in literally the poorest city in the entire United States of America. It's a small Texas-Mexico border town by the name of McAllen. And even in Canada and around the world, most everybody's heard of McAllen. It's
Yeah.
the place where the border crossings are happening, the cartels coming across. And don't get me wrong, I love my hometown, but it
Yeah.
can be a little rough growing up there with all the gangs and the drugs. In fact, I was on the wrong end of an assault rifle
Gee.
in junior high in my
Yeah.
own back alley.
Wow. Wow.
In high school, my father was killed. Before he died, one of the neighbors came up to him and said, I just want to make sure you understand something. Those three boys of yours, your three sons, not a single one of them will ever grow up to be anything.
Wow. Wow. That's
Well,
horrible. I love that you own it though. With the poorest town and all. I come from blue collar roots myself and I own it and you really embrace your background. I love that. So
it's the challenges we've gone through are what stronger. If I grew
absolutely.
up with a silver spoon in my mouth and everything was great and all that,
Yeah.
I wouldn't be able to help anybody.
Yeah.
You know,
Yeah.
what do I got to
Totally agree.
talk about? But the
Yeah.
fact that I've gone through what I've gone through is by the grace of God, helped inspire a lot of people who have been through worse circumstances than me.
Yeah.
But
No, I love that.
understand,
Totally
yeah,
agree. So
you
how did
can't.
that transition to helping you or inspiring you, I guess, to end up writing the book?
Well, I tried to prove them wrong, and I
Yeah.
tried, and I failed. And I got all the self-improvement stuff I could, all the goal-setting stuff I could, everything I could fill my head with. Even in high school, I'm listening to
Yeah.
Zig Ziglar and Tony
Okay.
Robbins and all this stuff.
Yeah.
And so I'm trying that stuff, and I failed, and I tried, and I failed, and I got to the point where I just couldn't fail anymore,
Yeah.
and I gave up.
Mm.
And I walked into the bathroom, and I looked at myself in the mirror, and I said, "I guess he's right. I really am never going to grow up to be anything."
Yeah.
Wait a minute. No,
Yeah.
no. I refuse to let that son of a gun be. For the sake of the memory of my dad, if nothing else, I refuse to let that son of a gun be right. And something clicked inside of me. Quite frankly, I got pissed off.
Yeah.
You know, I was not going to let him be right.
That's
So
a
I
nice
got,
fire in the belly.
yeah, yeah. Well, that's the whole deal. And that's a lot of what we're going to talk about today. How you
Yeah.
don't let that fire burn you down, you let it fuel you. And
Yeah.
that's what it did for me. I got up, I brushed myself off, and I got back at it. I
Yeah.
still face the same setbacks, the same challenges, the same no's, and everything as before, but now from a different standpoint.
Yeah. Yeah. So what is the Oxcart technique and how did you discover the system, I guess?
It was right there at that point, the lowest point of my life, one of them, where I realized the missing piece of the puzzle.
Hmm.
The missing piece of the puzzle of goal setting. See, 92% of the people that set goals failed. 92%.
I know it's shocking.
It is.
Yeah.
74% of diets fail. 50% of marriages fail. They're all goals.
Yeah.
They should be.
Yeah.
And I realized why by mistake. And then doing the scientific research, I realized some Nobel Prize winning science that backed it up. So the bottom line is prospect theory, which won the Nobel Prize when
Yeah.
applied to economics, teaches us that we'll do more to avoid pain
Yeah.
than to go toward pleasure.
True.
Does that make sense?
Yeah, sad but true.
Yeah, it's sad but true. And I know you've worked with that in your negotiating
Yeah,
background as well. We will do
absolutely.
more to avoid pain to go toward pleasure. So no matter how much positive visualization I did, it wasn't enough to get me through the pain of my comfort zone.
Yeah.
For one thing, I never believed that, I did the dream boards, everything they teach us,
Yeah.
big house, fancy car, all that. I don't care about any of that stuff. I'm my happiest in a tent in the middle of
Yeah.
nowhere. And I never believed a kid like me would have those kind of things.
Yeah.
So they didn't have the effect. But it's when I use not just the carrot, some positive visualization that I never believed would happen to a kid like me, but also the stick.
Yeah.
Never grow up to be anything.
Yeah.
And that worked more, depending on the individual, the situation. The Oxcart technique was born
Yeah.
because that's what it is. The ox cart, going off an old parable, revisited, the ox going towards a carrot or away from the stick.
Yeah.
And when I applied that to the goal setting, my life changed incredibly in every single way.
Wow. All right. Well, I can't wait for you to tell us a little bit more about that. So, what is, just before we move off the book, though, what's one of the most surprising things that you discovered while you were researching for the book or writing the book?
Man, I'm glad you asked that question. That it had scientific backing. Because one of the now my degree is mechanical engineering,
Yeah.
so I am a scientist, and scientific process is attempting to disprove your
Yeah.
theory, not to prove it.
Yeah. That's true.
So I'm researching, trying to disprove what I call the Oxcart technique.
Yeah.
And the more I dug in, the more I read, the more I realized, wait a minute, I might be onto something here.
Yeah.
But this psychology speak is way above my pay grade. It's not my world. So I found a PhD psychiatrist who did his dissertation on prospect theory.
Yeah.
And I reached out to him and said, here's who I am. Please prove me wrong.
Yeah.
And he dug and he dug and he dug and he came back and said, you are dead on, and wrote the foreword for my book.
Oh, nice.
I was blown away. And then Forrest Mims III, one of the top 50 best brains in science in the world, calls it the biggest advancement in the science of goal setting in recent history.
Yeah.
Me, something I came up with.
Nice.
But but
Nice.
I know me. I know where I came from.
Yeah.
This is born out of failure. This is born out of pain.
Yeah.
But
And just
many
to
of the best things
clarify
are.
for our listeners, so when we're talking about that sort of that ox cart technique, is that that you're mixing the pain with the stick with the carrot? Is that at its core what it's about?
That is at its core what it's about. It's
Okay.
utilizing both to reach your goals. Let me give you a
Yeah.
couple of examples. I do a lot of stuff in the wilderness. I'm one of those weirdos that goes in some of the harshest climates around the world, see if it'll kill me or
No
not.
wonder you won survival.
It certainly did help. I'll admit that. And one thing I can tell you is I can run pretty fast going towards a bear to take a really cool picture. I can run pretty fast doing that. You know when I can run faster? When
If
I'm
he's
running away
chasing
from
you.
that bear. Yes, and I have done both, I can tell you. Or one that I use, and you will appreciate this, for my marriage, because again, marriage is a goal. Sticking to it every day
Yeah.
is a goal. And I can tell you that I love my wife, and I stick to my daily goals because I love my wife and I want to spend the rest of my life with her. But you know why else? Do you know why else? Because she, like you, is an attorney and she can take everything I've got. Now, which one, when I'm getting hit at on that hit on by, at that office party or whatever, had a couple
Yeah.
too many, which one's going to work? Well, you know what? They both will, but that's the point. And
Yeah.
all too often we stray, and I don't just mean stray by sexually.
Yeah.
And I really love your title, from the boardroom to the bedroom, but stray into things that we do or don't do every day,
Yeah.
because
Absolutely.
the decision to succeed doesn't happen once, whether it's marriage, weight loss, whatever goal. It
Yeah.
happens every single day, in
Yeah.
fact, several times a day, but the actions we take and do not take.
Yeah. And it's the
The,
little things. And I think that applies whether in marriage, in our relationship with our kids, in our business relationships, in our relationships with service providers, all of it. It's all of the little things. Now, let's dig in more about the painful past, because I know you advocate, using that painful past to be able to
yes,
propel you to a better future. So
yes,
tell us a little bit more about that. So for our listeners, how they can relate and apply it in their
absolutely.
lives.
Absolutely. You can go from the pain to powerful. You can use that as fuel for your own fire. You can let those pains, those past experiences, those things you've gone through, you can let them tear you down. You can let them hold you back. You can use them as your yeah buts. I'd love to do those things, but
Yeah.
I can't because this has
Yeah.
happened to me. Yeah, but you can absolutely do that if you choose to. Or you can use those to fuel you. And
Yeah.
there have been many other people who have been in your same circumstance, whoever you are listening right now, I promise you, I know it's terrible. Some of them are terrible. There have been people in your exact same circumstance. You are not alone,
Yeah.
or even in worse circumstances than you have gone through, than you are going through right now,
Yeah.
that have used that pain to propel them to go, you know what? Not anymore, man. Not anymore. I'm taking control.
Yeah. I love that. And again, for listeners, I want to really put a pin in that because I think people underestimate how important that is. We all, our reality is determined by our thoughts and the meaning we attach. So if we have those painful pasts, we can either go, oh, poor me, I don't have a chance. I don't have, I mean, using my background, like I could have grown up going, oh, I grew up in a low rental tenement complex. So when I'm in law school, I don't have the connections other people do. So that's why I can't get ahead. Or exactly as Terry said, I used it to fuel me to go, I am going to prove them wrong. I am going to work harder. I am going to be better. I am going to make those connections myself. I have the capacity to do that. So tell yourself a better story. Tell yourself a new story. Now, is that the vital step that most people miss when I know you talk about setting goals, 90 something percent of people, which is terrifying.
Yeah.
Is that the key step that most people are missing, do you think, Terry?
There's zero question about it. And again, science has proven that that's true, not to mention my own experience and all of the people that I've worked with. I mean, it is so gratifying to me to get those emails. You just saved my marriage.
Yeah.
In one of my audience, I had people coming to me wanting to learn the Oxcart technique from
Yeah.
me.
Yeah.
And again, my background. That's why I'm going from me. Oh my God.
Yeah.
But, but I used it to reach the top fraction of 1% of my entire industry in the world.
Yeah.
And people were coming to me to learn. And I had an international weight loss coach who had lost over 100 pounds in one of my audiences. And she freaked out, started using it with her clients
Yeah.
in different parts of the world.
Yeah.
So that is the missing link if you do it properly. And that's part of the key part. And that's why, we'll really go into it a lot on this podcast here. But I really, really, really recommend that people get the book. In fact, I'm going to make the ebook available at half price for your podcast listeners,
Nice.
so everybody
Beautiful.
can get it,
Yeah.
because it
Nice.
it gives those subtle nuances that are so critical to your success in using this technique. We can
Yeah.
talk about it only so much here, and it gives examples of other people who have done it. It gives stories of how you can apply it. It gives you
Yeah.
ideas of how to apply it to whatever your goal is.
Yeah. Well, let's dig into some of it here so people can get a bit of a flavor for that. So, like, let's start with what are some things people can do to negotiate past their fears, past that self doubt? I mean, I think it plagues so many people and stops them from stepping into the best version of themselves.
Yeah, absolutely. And every single day is a negotiation with yourself. Let's
Yeah.
be honest here. Let's look at it from the weight loss standpoint. You are negotiating with yourself when you buy
Yeah.
that box of Girl Scout cookies, which I do recommend. Back those young ladies, but you're looking at those Samoas, okay, or those Thin Mints,
Yeah.
okay, or any of them, and you are deciding whether you are going to eat that or you're going to go toward your weight loss goals, your fitness goals. It is a negotiation within yourself.
Yeah.
This process gives you structure to that negotiation.
Yeah.
And here's how. Let me dig straight into it for you. Let me give you some brass tacks, as they say. What I teach is you start with the stick. You start with the failure scenario. And by the way, let me say you've done this many times in you've used this technique whether you know it or not.
Yeah.
With your kids. If you're good, you'll get a treat. If you're
Yeah.
bad, time out. It's gone on. Religion uses it. Good, go to heaven.
Yeah.
Bad, not so much. Um, so I teach start with the failure scenario because that provides a problem solution format. This is what worked for me. I
Yeah.
did my failure scenario. I'm never going to grow up to be anything. I'm going to be a failure. I'm going to be, et cetera, et cetera. Now I wrote that out, and I know there's a lot of people listening right now screaming, going, "No, you can't do that." Yes, you can. We don't. You don't have to avoid that pain. You can use that pain. I'm
Yeah.
prior military. Do I ignore my enemy? No, I focus on my enemy
Yeah.
and I learn from them so I can use that. Sports, you focus on the other team. You
Yeah.
focus on what could happen. Same thing with your failure scenario. I put in those things. Now, at the bottom of that, I put a phrase that is, and I'll paraphrase here, it's in the book, this will not be my future. I
Yeah.
will do whatever it takes to make sure the success scenario is my future. so I can enjoy the success that I deserve. Now, when I read that, whether it's for my marriage or my life or my weight, which I've had problems with my weight in the past as well, I read that and my subconscious is screaming out, I can't let that happen. I'll do anything it takes to let that not happen.
Yeah.
Page 2. What does it take? This is the daily action plan. This is the daily actions you will take or will not take that are going to determine whether that failure scenario is your future, because it could be, it's a possible future. That divorce could happen. That
Yeah.
failure could happen. That weight could come back on, etc. Okay. It's important to understand that's possible. But if you take these actions, that won't happen. And page 3, your success scenario will. I'll be able to live out my golden years with the woman that I'm madly in love with and do all the things we want to do because I'm healthy
Yeah.
enough and we've got the finances to do it. And at the bottom of that, this will be my future,
Yeah.
etc.
Yeah.
Problem
Beautiful.
solution format that starts your subconscious screaming and ends up with it singing. Does that make sense?
That does make sense, and I love that you called out that people are probably screaming because it's true. We live in a culture where it's like you're only allowed positive thoughts, and preparing for any negotiation, frankly. I mean, negotiating our own mindset is our first and most important negotiation. But when you're going into any negotiation, you want to be considering, all right, what if the other side shows up like this? What if the other party, what fears are they bringing to the table? How is ego likely to show up for them? What are their triggers that are going to cause them to be reactive so that you can prepare for that and not end up in a situation where you're reactive yourself because you're shell shocked and caught off guard. So I really like that you put a pin in that for us. And I'd like to talk about starting because I know, if we want our life to change, we need to start by changing. What do you find is the most effective way to just start for people who are maybe back at the drawing board going, "Oh, this sounds hard for me, Terry." What advice do you have for them on kickstarting a change in their life in their work approach?
Yeah, absolutely. First of all, do it now. Um, I've talked to so many people that have said things like, well, I'm not ready right now, or the timing's not good. I want to wait. Here's my favorite of all. I want to wait until the timing is good because when I do something, I want to do it all the way.
Yeah.
They never do it. You
I
know?
call that a one-day mindset. One day when the kids are in school, when the kids are out of school, when this happens, when I get this extra degree, when that happens. I hear you.
Yes. Yeah, absolutely. So first of all, decide to do it right now
Yeah.
and be honest with yourself. Pull out 3 pieces of paper for one thing. Start right now today. As soon as you're done listening to this podcast, pull out 3 pieces of paper. Pick your goal, whatever the goal is, and start writing down. First of all, write down page 2 to begin with.
Yeah.
What are some things that you think you should do to go for that goal? Now, for your marriage or whatever relationship
Yeah.
you're in, how do you know what's going to really cement that relationship? You ask them. It's not rocket science. You ask them. And to me, one of the best things I've seen come out of couples doing this together is the honest
Yeah.
communication.
Yeah.
No, this isn't important to me. Wow, I was doing that. I thought it was important to you. I thought you liked the end a slice of bread. And other things like, wow, I'm really sorry. I didn't know that was important to you. I'll start
Yeah.
doing it from now on.
Yeah.
So you write down your daily actions because again, the decision to succeed does not happen once. It happens every single day. In fact, several times a day by the actions we take and do not take. But here's the problem. We've done that a million times. For weight loss, we know what we're going to do. For our goals, we know what to do. For our financial goals, our business, we know what to do. The hard part's sticking to it. Next, write out your failure scenario. Be honest. Make it a narrative. Make it a story, not factual. We act on emotion, not
Yeah.
fact. Another pin in it. We take action not on fact, but on
Yeah.
emotion. The more emotion you create, the more action you will take.
Yeah.
When I mean, in my book is my failure scenario for my marriage, my actual one. You can read it in there, and it makes me cry to read
Yeah.
it. It really does. It is so. In fact, I'm getting emotional right now,
Yeah.
just even thinking about it. I'm getting
Yeah.
goosebumps, and that proves that it works
Yeah.
because I will now read that out loud twice a day, every day. First thing in the morning, I read it. And then I read the actions that I will take the rest of the day. And I
Mm.
stick to them. She gets I love you texts all the time for
Yeah.
no reason whatsoever. In fact, she'll if I were to say to her, and you're listening, I go, have I told you yet today? She will answer that you love me.
Nice.
Well,
Nice.
it's those little things that we know we need
Yeah.
to stick to. And then at the end, I write out that amazing true future that I will work toward.
Yeah.
Now, when I'm doing private coaching with people, which I do some of, they will call me up or text me and they'll tell me, okay, today I had more of a left day, a failure day,
Yeah.
right? Than a right day. But that's okay because here's what I'm doing better tomorrow.
Yeah.
And that's okay. We're
Yeah.
not perfect. We're going to screw up.
Yeah.
It's that consistency that
Yeah.
the Oxcart technique gives you in your life that gets you to your goals.
Nice. Now, are these those do or die steps that you talk about? Because I read when you'd said about, I suggest not only thinking outside the box, but throwing the box away and then identify those do or die steps to change. Would that be what you've just described for us?
Well, it really is. Now, that's actually two different books, two different keynote speeches right there. But absolutely it is. It is
Yeah.
do or die.
Yeah.
There's no doubt about it. And we can certainly apply that to give the listeners a quick background. One of the business teachings that I teach is we cannot think outside the box. You can't do that. You do that, you will die. You have to throw away the box. You
Yeah.
got to take everything off the table, throw it on the table, burn the table, and reapproach everything from a different standpoint.
Yeah.
We can apply that here, and I give some great examples of Sears and other companies that haven't, IBM that has, et cetera. It's a fun keynote. And that book is upcoming still, but we can apply that here. That if your marriage isn't working,
Yeah.
maybe it's time to throw away the box. And I don't mean throw away your spouse. What I mean is, instead of doing small iterations, maybe it's time to take a really good hard look at yourself.
Yeah.
First of all, you can control you. You can't control them. You can control you. Have a good look at yourself. Have a good conversation and be prepared to reapproach your marriage, your business goals, your weight loss goals, whatever, from a completely different standpoint.
Yeah.
You can reinvent yourself. God knows I've done it several times
Yeah.
over. If you look at my bio, you can do that. You have the power within you to do that. Do it.
Yeah. Yeah. Nice. Now you have a 10-step process, right? A sort of no fail approach to that. Can you share some of those with us, Sarah?
Yeah, absolutely. And again, that is well towards the organizational change. So we're going to shift our focus a little bit on this podcast, and that is okay. I think it's great because pretty much everybody here is in an organization of some sorts.
Yeah.
So this can apply, of course, to your company, to your business. This could apply to your Rotary Club.
Yeah.
It could apply to your PTA. It could apply to anything. I've been very blessed to be part of some massive changes in some failing organizations
Yeah.
because we helped them throw away the box.
Yeah.
Now, danger, Will Robinson. That can be trouble from two standpoints. One, you got to do it smart.
Yeah.
You can't just throw away the box for the sake of doing it and go out there willy-nilly. You got to make sure that you're really following long-term trends instead of short-term fads.
Yeah.
You've got to really focus on what you're doing. So there's some things there. But the other part is change is hard.
Yeah.
I saw a great little meme or whatever you young kids are calling it these days, where the guy's up front goes, "Who wants change?" And everybody raises their hand. Who wants to change? Everybody's looking down. No eye contact. But the first things you need to do is you need to create the need in the organization to
Yeah.
do the change. That is step number one. It's got to come from them. If you try to dictate that from above, it ain't going to happen. They will dig their feet in. If
Yeah.
you put a fire underneath someone,
Yeah.
they will stomp it out the second you walk away. You build a fire inside of them, and
Yeah.
it'll burn forever.
Yeah. And let me just stop you for one sec. I want to draw the parallel for our listeners there. That's similar to the Oxcart technique as well, that in terms of how we change ourselves, right? You've got to create that pain point, create that need to get the buy-in, whether it's in your personal goals and aspirations or whether it's in the organizational shifts. So
There is zero question about that. In fact, there are many parallels that I
yeah.
draw in this new book, in this new keynote from the Oxcart technique,
Yeah.
including we act and your people, your teams will act on emotion, not on fact.
Yeah.
We'll ignore facts. We will die for a cause.
Yeah. Yeah.
Turn it into a
True.
cause.
Yeah.
And we're talking about change. Instead of focusing on how great it could be if we change, let's also bring in what happens if we don't.
Yeah.
Because an interesting fact, 52% of the Fortune 500 companies, Fortune 500 that were alive in 2000, 52% are dead.
Yeah.
It doesn't matter how big you are or
Yeah.
how rich you are or how good you think your marriage is
Yeah.
or et cetera. Keep working on it. Keep negotiating it.
Yeah. Beautiful. Beautiful. And what are some non-negotiable habits that you commit to daily, would you say? Or do you have any?
Oh, well, I think it's all depending on the subject, obviously. And let me state a couple right now when it comes to your marriage. If there is abuse going on, zero negotiation.
Yeah.
That don't go, whether
Yeah.
it's physical, whether it's emotional, whether it's verbal. I state in the book, and every time I talk about this, there is nothing that my book or the Oxcart Technique is going to do to help you. You need to get professional counseling. Non-negotiable. Absolutely. The next one, let's talk about substance abuse. And I know you hit that actually in a recent podcast.
Hmm. Yeah.
I was writing the addiction chapter of the Oxcart Technique Blueprint for Success book. I'm here at my computer. I'm writing that chapter, wondering, I don't really know if I want to keep that in there or not. It's kind of a business, but I don't know. My doorbell rings. I go up to check it. It's one of my housekeeping team. And she,
Yeah.
oh, Mr. Fossum, I'm so sorry to bother you. So sorry to bother you. I didn't know you'd be here. I'm like, well, I'm kind of work out of the house, but okay.
Yeah.
Um, we were here yesterday. I left my favorite sweatshirt here. Do you mind if I look for it? I'm like, okay.
Yeah.
You know the house better than I do. Go for it. But something seemed wrong.
Yeah.
It just seemed off.
Yeah.
And she went right up into our bedroom area where my wife leaves her jewelry around and
Yeah.
everything. And so I crept up the stairs. And I looked through the bedroom area into the bathroom area, and she's in my underwear drawer.
Wow.
So I go to make myself known at that point. I said, your sweatshirt will not be in my underwear drawer. And she, oh, I'm so sorry. I was shutting it for you. It was open. I was shutting it for you. And I'm about to say something, and she looks past me, and she goes, oh, there it is. Like, I turn around, and
Yeah.
lo and behold, there's a sweatshirt partially underneath my bed.
Yeah.
Like, oh, thank you so much. Okay. I call up my wife. Did I mention my attorney wife? I think I mentioned that.
Yeah.
And I said, darling, I called her darling, was there another woman's sweatshirt partially underneath your side of the bed? She says, if there was, you'd be the first person to know it. Yeah. So I call up the head of the team. I say, okay, she was stealing from me.
Yeah.
She'll never no longer be in my house again. You decide what you want to do. I'm going to cut this short. She calls the next day. She's in tears. She said, I'm so sorry. I'm so sorry. I'm addicted to painkillers. I was stealing your leftover hydrocodone.
Yeah.
For 12 years. I was in an accident. For 12 years, I've been lying to my husband. I've been lying to friends. I've been lying to myself. I'm addicted, and you caught me. So, okay, here's the deal. I knew I needed to help her, not enable her, help her.
Yeah.
Time for the Oxcart Technique. You're going to prison. This is a felony. You're stealing my prescription medication. You are going to prison. Tears are flowing. I'll let
Yeah.
that sink
I
in.
bet.
Yeah, you betcha.
Yeah.
Tears are flowing. I let it sink in just for a second.
Yeah.
I said, unless, okay, now the bridge, the
Yeah.
daily action plan, that's the bridge between your failure and your success. Daily action plan, unless you go to inpatient counseling, which brings me to your question about non-negotiables.
Yeah.
Inpatient counseling. After that, follow up with outpatient counseling. And, oh, thank you. No. I will follow up with you. I will make sure you do this. And if you do, success scenario, carrot, you can finally be free of this. You can
Yeah.
stop lying to your husband. You can stop lying to your friends. You can stop lying to yourself, and you can be free. And that's been approximately 12 years ago. And as of this day, she is still clean.
Yeah.
I
Beautiful. Wow.
got the most amazing letter from her. I
Yeah.
thank God the day you busted me.
Yeah. Yeah. That's nice. And we can all use a little more of that in our life. And it's true. We are a very pain averse. On
Yeah,
most of the personal development really shies away from it. So this is
right.
probably, and for a lot of listeners, it might be like, well, that scratching your head, that's a little different. Share one other of your favorite success stories using your method.
So I was working with a couple just recently, and I was doing personal coaching with them, and it was for business. And we're doing some things on business. But as I am talking to them, I'm finding out that that's not going to work because they are both at odds with each other
Yeah.
on this. And okay, folks, we are going to shift to the marriage aspect of this. I think we need to work on that first. And what was absolutely amazing to me, as we all know, our relationships, and especially that one, are centrist to everything we
Yeah.
do, every aspect of our lives. They've said if mama ain't happy, but
Yeah.
same thing goes for daddy too.
Yeah.
You know, either way, that is central. So the main focus then is work on that. So I will say to the listeners also, if you are having trouble reaching any of your goals, let's start looking at those relationships first. And
Yeah.
yes, indeed, starting the relationship with yourself
Yeah.
first. But let's look at that. And maybe that's where you need to focus on to begin with.
Mm,
And once again, it was a story of saving another
yeah.
marriage.
That's
And
beautiful.
and then they can go from there.
Yeah. And actually, as you're saying that, I want to really emphasize for our listeners out there to be thinking about how you can apply some of this stuff in your life. Because, like Terry, as you're saying that, I'm thinking even in ours, you say about our merit, our intimate relationships, our marriages, or but
Right.
also with our kids, like all of our relationships. And I thought, we've had one of my kids has been dealing with some real mental health challenges, sort of since COVID. And I recognized I've got to work on that it affects everything else. Exactly what you just said. It's affecting how I show up in business. It was affecting absolutely every area of my life. And I recognize I've got to make that an absolute priority. I got to work on really strengthening that relationship and getting it to be the best that it can be, to a point where I feel like I've done everything I can. And then the rest of the pieces start falling in place. So I think that's beautiful advice that you've left
Right
us.
on. Right on.
Yeah.
Well, and I hope people hope they take it to heart and take action on it. Again, for everybody listening in, if you just listen to this and go, wow, that was pretty cool, but don't do anything with it,
Yeah.
then I apologize. And I
Yeah.
mean that, because that means that I wasn't able to get across to you how much this can change your life, so much so to get you to want to take action on it. So that's on me. But feel free to look me up, social media, whatever, and ask any questions, whatever we need to do to help you take action on those areas of your life that you need to work on,
Yeah.
because you
And
can.
where do you want people to get in touch with you, Terry? We'll make sure to put it in the show notes, but just for people who are listening right now and going, okay, I'm going to follow up on this, where do you want them to reach out?
You bet. Well, one of the things that I wanted to do for your audience is, I mean, you can get the book on Amazon. It's on there. The ebook is on there on Amazon, even an audio book. And the ebook is $9.95. For your listeners, though, I wanted to be able to let them get it at half price. So if they go to thegoalsecret.com, they can get the
Perfect.
ebook at $4.95.
Can't
They
beat
can
that.
also,
That'll
you
be the
can't
best
be.
$5 you ever spent.
It really is. It really is. And then I asked them to put a special on the audio book also on there. And then there's another set that I put together, an audio series that I'm very proud of. It's helped so many people overcome their fears, overcome their self-doubts, their excuses, everything, called Blow the Bolts. And they can get that on there at a greatly discounted price as well.
That's awesome. And we'll make sure to put that in the show notes as well. Thank you for that generosity. I'm a big believer. If we aren't growing, we are moving in the other direction. So make sure that you are taking advantage of this. Look at things with new perspectives and fresh eyes so that you can step in and negotiate your best life, and use
Yeah.
that pain that you've been using as an excuse as a way to really catapult yourself into your future. So Terry, I normally like to end by asking, what's one of the greatest mindset shifts you've had in your life? And I mean, maybe this is it, or it doesn't have to be about this. Just something that made you look at the world differently, or show up differently, or think differently.
I think two things. One, and again, now you and everybody listening has an idea of my background, at least as much as I am willing to tell you, right? And we all have that as well. I think, first of all, realizing, well, in fact, let me tell you a very quick story. We got time for a quick story here?
Sure, we're coming it down to the end here, but I always have time for a good
Okay.
story.
Okay, very quickly. An epiphany. So my background. It's also my brother's background's never going
Yeah,
to grow up to be anything. Not every story has a happy ending, but we can learn from it. I'll give you a very quick version of this.
yeah,
One of my brothers decided he wanted to be a United States astronaut.
yeah. Wow,
Okay, yeah,
big
yeah,
ambition. Gotta love that.
yeah, whatever. Um, and of course, we all laughed at him. And again, his background, same thing, same place. But he tried and he failed, of course. And he tried and he failed. He tried for 14 years. He
Wow.
tried and failed for
Yeah,
14 years. Not every story is happy ending, but we can learn from him. Finally, he was working at NASA. His boss told him, Mike, you understand that you're not going to be an astronaut. You need a about face, because you're about to lose your job here at NASA. And by the way, you're too old.
yeah.
You're past the window. We don't allow astronauts at this age anymore. We've been trying to tell you all this time, cut it out. And when I found out he was going for it one more time, I called him up and said, Mike, I want to make sure you understand something. Not a, I don't care. I don't care if you make it. I don't care. I couldn't care less,
Yeah.
because I couldn't be more proud of you than I am right now.
Oh,
It's not improbable. It's impossible.
yeah.
And he went for it anyway. And we got that call. It literally dropped him to his knees when the guy said, Mike, I'm sorry. You're going to come clear out your desk
Yeah.
because you've been selected to be a United States astronaut. It does not matter your background, guys. It does not matter what other
Wow.
people think of you. It doesn't matter what you think of yourself.
Yeah.
Do not limit yourself. You can get past everything you're going through right now and everything you have gone through,
Yeah.
and you can reach whatever heights you darn well decide.
Oh.
Just do it.
Oh, and what a great inspiration, that believing in ourselves, which society knocks the stuffing out of us, and most of us
Yeah.
don't. So keep that love list going, remind yourself of all of the things that all of the qualities that you love about yourself, and believe in your dreams and pursue them regardless of what. And it's often, Terry, it's the people closest in our life with all of the best intentions who actually stop us from really taking those big leaps and having bigger visions and thinking bigger and getting rid of that box, as you say.
Yes.
So,
Yeah.
yeah,
They try to. They can only do it
yeah,
if you let them.
yeah. What a great mindset shift. I love that. And kudos to your brother.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh, that's fabulous. Okay. Well, thank you for sharing and thank you for being with us, Terry. This has been a really enlightening, fresh perspective. I can't wait to dig into your book.
Well, and thank you once again for everything you're doing. And I mean that from the bottom of my heart. You're really out there helping people. You're making a difference in
Likewise.
people's lives. And that's a life worth living, isn't it?
And what a difference. And thank you, Terry, for all of it that you do and that inspiration that you bring. And thank you for sharing that with our listeners. And for our listeners, I hope you got loads of value from this. Make sure to give the gift of sharing. Share this episode with other people in your life who can benefit. And frankly, everyone can benefit from this message. I mean, we all have a sort of a duty to ourselves and to others to push to be the best version of ourselves and to use all of the resources available to be able to do that. Make sure to subscribe to the podcast if you haven't done that yet. And before we sign off, just want to share some ways that we can work together if you're looking to uplevel your negotiation skills to negotiate your best life. I've got everything from online to group to my signature VIP and mastermind experiences, all designed to help you leverage your innate, yes, you have natural power to be able to negotiate to get more of what you want and deserve in life. And if that sounds interesting, check it out at artoffemininenegotiation.com. And make sure to grab a copy of my book of the same name, Art of Feminine Negotiation, How to Get What You Want from the Boardroom to the Bedroom. And that is a wrap for this episode. Until next time, go forth and negotiate your best life on your terms so you can stop missing out and start getting more of what you want and deserve from the boardroom to the bedroom. Until next time, take care.